Hello, and welcome to another episode of Be a Leader podcast, where we talk about current events in sports, military, and business through the lens of leadership. And yes, you can see by my polo that Michigan Wolverines have won the NCAA tournament for the men's basketball game just last night. So I'm very excited about that. It feels very good. Go blue. So we're going to talk about the Final Four and the championship game, but there's a lot of things to learn here. So I am wearing one of my old manager shirts. I think I wore this for the NCAA tournament when I was still part of the team. I was manager for John Beilein during his first 4 years at the University of Michigan. I later moved my family to be a graduate assistant coach for Juwan Howard, but he cut my position first week of school. But I put a lot of sweat equity into this program, and it's very nice to see them win a championship. It was close in 2013. It was close in 2018. But here in 2026, they finally won. So anyways, it is special. It is special for me. That's why I'm wearing this maize polo for y'all. So now we're not just going to talk about Michigan. We're not just going to talk about the championship game. We're going to look at the Final Four. So 2 games in the Final Four, the national championship game. So 3 games, and we're not diving in between each game. Okay, you can do that. Go to ESPN. Go at any of your favorite places if you like that type of content. But today we're going to look at leadership stuff, as we always do. These games, Final Four, national championship game. It's a lot of pressure. And this is where identity is exposed. You hear me all the time talking about leadership, talking about identity. We'll talk about it more today. But this is where we see what they're made of. So we're going to look at 5 different leadership traits that's sprinkled over these 3 games. What can we learn from these men's basketball games? So quick facts in case you don't know. I'm going to make this real quick. But in case you don't know, the Final Four, there was 4 teams that were the Final Four. The first game on Saturday was a 3 seed Illinois Fighting Illini versus a 2 seed University of Kentucky Huskies. UConn won that game by roughly 10 points. It was 71-62. The second game on Saturday was a 1 seed Michigan Wolverines against another 1 seed Arizona Wildcats. This game, Michigan won by almost 20 points. It was 91-73. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And then the championship game was just last night, Monday night. It was number 2 seed UConn Huskies versus number 1 Michigan Wolverines, and Michigan won that by 6 points, only 6 points, 69-63. So now you know the scores, who was in the games. Let's talk about these leadership traits. So the very first one, as you can bet, is going to be on identity. Identity shows up under pressure. All right. So when the pressure rises, you don't rise to the occasion. You're going to fall to your identity. What are you really? Who are you really? Let's briefly go through the 4 teams. Michigan and UConn, examples, great examples of relying on their identity. For Michigan, they're a defensive first team, and they relied on that in their 2 games. UConn, they are very good at executing on offense. They have a very complicated offensive scheme using a lot of screens. They're very good at that, and they relied on their identity. On the flip side, and that's why they make it to the national championship game, right? On the flip side, the ones that drifted were the 2 teams that did not win in the Final Four, Illinois and Arizona. Illinois, they're tall, big, athletic team, very good offensively, but they did not play to their identity. They were more concerned about not losing than they were about winning. Okay, they were waiting for some kind of hot streak to come take over, right? But that did not happen. Arizona, they're a big defensive rebounding team. They're not a 3-point shooting team that they really beat up down low, but they didn't do that. They got beat up down low in the first 5 minutes of the game, and they got scared, and they pretty much gave up. We'll talk about that later. But they did not play to their identity. Remember, identity is not what you say. Identity is how you execute when things get hard. All right. In the Marine Corps, we train the way we fight. We're always focused on how we're going to fight. So we train and we train and we train through austere conditions, through long nights, long weeks, bad weather, everything. So that when we go into combat, it feels normal. We rely on that training. We just keep doing the things that we've been doing. We don't have to rise to any occasion. We just keep doing us. And it works. You fall back to that level of training. And that's why I preach my IBR framework, identity, behavior, results. It starts with identity. What is your identity? Then make behaviors that align to that identity. And the results will take care of themselves. It takes consistency over the long term. These are things we'll talk more about in this episode. So identity, revealed under pressure. UConn and Michigan did very good. That's why they made it to the championship game. Illinois, Arizona, not so much. Let's go on to the second principle. And we talk about consistency. That's the second one. Consistency wins championships. Okay. Championship teams, they're kind of boring. They do the same thing all the time. They're constantly focused on these daily rituals, these daily practices. We call them vitamins. Coach Beilein called them our daily vitamins. We kept doing them. The consistency is the most important thing. I would say University of Connecticut is the golden standard. And if you remember, I'm not a UConn fan. I've never really cared for them or the program, but much respect to them, especially after this run here in the Final Four. Okay, they are the gold standards. And in the last 4 years, including this year, in 4 years, they've gone to 3 national championship games and won 2 of them. That's consistency, at least on the winning level. But it really derives a lot by how they play. If you watch any of their games, you see how consistent they are running their sets. They do screens, re-screens, curl screens, back screens, all types of screens to get their open shots, and they're very good shooters. Every single play, they are consistent in every single play. Illinois and Arizona, no surprise here, they were very inconsistent. Okay, we know the way that Illinois likes to play high offense tempo. We know the way Arizona likes to play down low, being big dominant. Both of them left those in the games that they lost. Michigan, interesting case. They've been consistently scoring at a high level. They had multiple games, leading up to the championship game. They had, I believe, 4 games that they scored 90-plus points. That's a lot. That broke a record. And in this championship game, they barely got, there was in the 60s, right? They didn't even make 70 points. But they were consistent where it mattered. And that was their defense. It's part of their identity. They were consistent on defense. That was the most important thing for them. And they were consistent there. Again, a reason why they made the national championship game and ended up winning that game. So remember, consistency beats intensity. Okay. Intensity is fleeting. Okay. It's the play after play. It's the day after day. It's the week after week. When I coach people, when I work with people, whether it's college basketball or whether it's working with startups, founders, like anyone can bring intensity one day. The motivation feels good. But it's the question of how consistent will you be on the good days and the bad days, on the long days, on the long stretch. Because when I'm a coach, I see someone, I said, here you are here, and you can get here. The question really is going to be, for me, is the level of consistency and learning through the coaching. I cannot want it more than you. I cannot want it more than them. But I see buy-in when they're consistent over time, when they're learning through their challenges and their setbacks, when they're applying coaching and learning principles over a period of time. That's how I can take someone here and help them get there. It's through consistency. Champions do the boring work all the time, daily. I remember there was this particular event when I was with tanks for a little bit in the Marine Corps. We're in the desert, suffering for weeks out. It's blazing hot in the desert. I was talking to my fellow Marines. We just joked. We're like, why do we even do this? Like 98% of our time in the Marine Corps is suffering and sucks. And 2% is glorious and fun. Why do we do this? And then the answer was obvious, because the 2% is that good and the purpose is that important. But we acknowledge that, if we wanted a better life, we'd go to the Air Force, right? But we had so much pride, and we're stubborn, I guess, and we chose the Marine Corps because that spoke to us. Right, it spoke to the identity that we were building. But yeah, 98% of our time in the Marine Corps, it was suffering and sucked, right? But we do those little things because of what matters most. All those mornings, all the training, all the annoying little games that we played, all the haircuts that we cut every week, right? All the things that we do, they had a bigger purpose. And that's what gets you through doing the little bitty things consistently over a period of time. And so 2 questions as we wrap up this point here. The first one, where in your life are you relying on intensity instead of consistency? And the second question, where are you hoping for some kind of hot streak instead of building daily habits like Illinois was? They were hoping for a hot streak. Consistency is what separates the good from the great. Anything important and big in life has come through consistency. So that is our second point. Let's move on to the third point, and that is, third point, courage under fire. All right. Look, everyone gets punched in the face. Every time you go out to play, to battle, to work, you're going to get hit. The question isn't really like, am I going to get hit? The question is, how are you going to respond? How will you respond? Illinois, when they got hit, they did not play well against Connecticut. Okay, they expected their length to help them out. They expected their hot shooting to get them out. They didn't play hard, particularly in any part of the game. Okay, they were just hoping for this hot thing. The wave will come. It will be okay. And it never came. And they never made adjustments. They didn't switch on any of these screens. They kept having to fight through screens, giving UConn open shots. They played softer against a smaller team. The smaller team of Connecticut outworked the larger team of Illinois. We go to Arizona. They got punched in the mouth. Again, these games are 40 minutes, two 20-minute halves in the first 5 minutes of the game. Michigan punched them in the mouth. And Arizona, big-eyed, these tall guys. I mean, they're like the biggest, one of the biggest teams. They're very physical. Their identity is defense and rebounding and having bigs, very powerful bigs. And they looked big-eyed, like they had no idea what happened to them. They lost the game in the first 5 minutes. They were down by 30 points at one point in the game. They got scared, and they gave up. You look at UConn, other side of the story. All you do is look at that UConn Elite 8 game, which we talked about in the previous episode. They were down 15 points against number 1 seed Duke, statistically guaranteed to lose the game. It happened 134 times previously, and it was 134-0. There was statistically no chance for UConn to win that game at from half to the end of the game, and they did not fear that. They kept working and executing, kept doing their ball screens, kept getting their shot close by close. They were down 2 points with 10 seconds, and they didn't even have the ball, and they still managed to find a way to win that game. Okay, they kept playing. They have this winning mentality there. It's very impressive. Okay, they don't fear anyone. And that's a huge thing that we can take away and learn from that team specifically. They don't fear anyone. And then Michigan, today get punched in the mouth. Final Four game against Arizona. Again, they blew Arizona out of the water. But if you just look at the statistics, you fail to realize the best player, Yaxel Lendenberg, he got 2 quick fouls in the beginning of the game, so hardly played anything in the first half. Went back in and then had a big injury. He ended up spraining not only his ankle, but also his meniscus in his knee. And he tried to play a little bit the second half, but he was very, couldn't do what he does. But the rest of the team stepped up, and they still scored 90-plus points in that game. They did not fear the moment. Most teams, best player goes down, everyone's worried. Michigan did not fear the fact that the best player was hurt. They kept finding ways. And in the second game, when the championship game, best player was still hurt. We'll talk about that a little bit later. He played terribly offensively. Right? We'll talk about the defense later. And their shots weren't falling. They couldn't buy a three-pointer. They missed all their three-pointers in the first half. Did they fear? They did not fear. They made adjustments. We'll talk about adjustments a little bit later. But they kept fighting. They did not fear when they got punched in the mouth. Look, fear is natural. It's an emotion. It's a signal that pops up. Okay, I can remember a few times when I was in the Marine Corps in Iraq feeling fear. But good leaders aren't going to let the fear control them. Okay, not change your behavior. Okay. UConn kept executing when they were down. Michigan kept fighting even when the shots weren't falling. Right. Those are things that we can take away from these games. And that leads to the fourth point. And this is one of the big ones. Adjustments. Adjustments is leadership in real time. Okay. Being committed to the same plan is not leadership. Being committed to win is. Dusty May got asked before the game how we felt about the game. He's like, we've prepared everything we need to for this game. Okay. And we'll know that for sure by the end, by the outcome. But we've done everything we need to win this game. So, look, games don't go as planned. Either they played better than you had hoped, you played worse than you hoped, which has happened to Michigan in these games. You still have to make an adjustment. In the Marine Corps, we have a mission statement. The mission has 2 parts. It has task and it has purpose. It tells you what you have to do and the reason you have to do it. Very important. And then after that, there's commander's intent. And the commander's intent is the big picture. Why are we doing this? And the idea here is there's 2 parts. One is you know exactly what you need to do and why. But the other part is as long as the commander's intent is met, is mission success. Even if everything screws up, you do your darnest trying to make it work and it doesn't work out or whatever it is, as long as you can achieve commander's intent, it is mission success. And in this case, for both coaches, it was give our teams a chance to win the national championship game. And Michigan went in and their game plan did not work out. And UConn went in there and their game plan did work out and just didn't make it enough. But the end was the commander's intent. And this is where I go back to adjustments. When you go to University of Michigan, you go to Coach Dusty May, who was also a previous manager, right? Just like I was. He is a master of adjustments. And I'll quickly give you some logic behind this, right? Let's look at some stats, specifically on the national championship game. Michigan likes to score a lot. We talked about they scored usually in the 90 points. UConn, they can't play that game. They got to slow it down. Did they slow it down? Yes, they slowed it down. At halftime, when Michigan's usually scoring around 50 points, 45 to 50 points at half, they only had 33 points at half. They were up 29 to 33, but they were playing UConn's pace. Dusty May said, okay, we're playing UConn's pace. We got to make sure that we're not letting them score. Okay. So he took that. Another adjustment, star player. Yaxel was still hurt. He was very hurt. But instead of taking out the player because he's not doing well on offense, Dusty May said, I need him on defense. I need him around. And if he makes a bucket, great. But I don't need him to make buckets. I just need him to be in the game. Give me what you can. Yaxel missed all his shots in the first half. They asked him at halftime. He said, I'm playing terrible. I feel so physically limited. But he said, I'm going to keep going. Okay. Rather than bench him if he's not scoring offensively, Dusty May made the adjustment. We will keep him for the defensive and the morale purpose, not for offense. The third one, and this is probably the one. This is a big one. Michigan couldn't shoot. They usually shoot 10 plus 3-pointers a game. There was games where they're shooting 10 to 15 plus 3-pointers a game. Okay. If you look at 10 times 3 is 30. They're relying 30 of their normally 90 points on 3-pointers. And they couldn't make them. They made 0 in the first half. 0. They missed them all. But what did Michigan do? They made adjustments. They started going to the paint. They made 36 points in the paint, focusing on there. And free throws. And I'm calling out all basketball players and aspiring basketball players. Free throws is so important. In this game, we see it. They shot 28 and made 25 of 28. They only missed 3. 25 for 28. That's 89%. Round up to 90%. 9 out of every 10 they shots. Excellent adjustment to focus on getting those points. And again, it was a 6-point game. All those free throws mattered. All right. And then the final adjustment here can escape some people, but it was the defensive scheme that Dusty May did. In defense, you can't guard everything. You got to give something up. And we know that Connecticut is a master at screens. They do all these screens and they get these open shots and they love 3-pointers. They make big runs off 3-pointers. They can be demoralizing for teams. And here, Dusty May said, we are going to focus on stopping the 3-pointer. Part of it was switching. Illinois did not want to switch. Michigan switched. They switched 4, which means the big end switch, but the other 4 guys did, so that helped a lot. But all the intensity was on there. They wanted challenging shots. First half, UConn made 5 3-pointers. At least 4 of them that I remember were extremely challenging. They were not open. They were tough ones. They made it. In the second half, towards the end of the game, they got caught closer. They made a bank 3-pointer off a prayer. They're trying to get those 3-pointers off. Michigan was focused on that. And what did they give up? They were giving up easy layups and 2-pointers, which sounds absolutely crazy. But this was the adjustment Dusty May made for the team. Focus on the 3-pointers, take away that strength of UConn, and then guard the 2-pointers and layups by committee, which means they would compact. They would fall on. If the ball got inside, the defense would fall. They were challenging shots. They had 6 block shots. UConn was not used to that level of intensity around the rim, and it gave so much challenges to UConn. Besides foul trouble and missing some 3-pointers, they were not used to that level of intensity, but it was by committee. They focused on the 3-pointers, and then they crashed anytime the ball got inside. You can call it a crazy scheme, but that was an adjustment Dusty May had to do because of the opponent and because of the lack of scoring that Michigan is used to having and did not have. So what's the lesson when it comes to these adjustments? Being stubborn about your plan is not discipline. It's ego, okay? True leadership is recognizing when something is not working and making real-time adjustments in the moment. It's just too easy and too dangerous to stick to your plan or worse, double down. Make those adjustments. And here's the question for you. Where in your life right now are you being stubborn instead of strategic? And where do you need to make an adjustment right now? Things to think about once you're done with this video. And now we'll go into the 5th one. The fifth lesson, control what you can control. This is a tough lesson for a lot of us when we first experience these emotions. We're going to talk about UConn here, but sometimes you do everything right and it still doesn't work. You still don't win. It still doesn't go the way you wanted to, and it's tough. It's really hard. I remember I learned this lesson in high school. I put everything I could. It was a literature class in high school. I put everything I could to get an A, and I got a B. And I was so frustrated. And I got that lesson. I learned that lesson. You can put everything you want into it. And sometimes things just don't work out. Right? Some things are just outside of your control. I did everything I could. I wanted straight A's. I got that B in literature. It was my only B my senior year. Still got into Michigan, but man, it hurt so bad. I remember that. UConn, let's go back to Connecticut here. They did everything right that championship game, and they still lost. They did everything. Their pace, they controlled the pace. It was their style. They executed their screens. They were playing at a very high level. They were playing very hard, very scrappy. They took great shots. They were getting the shots they wanted, and they only missed 2 or 3 3-pointers that could have changed the whole game. They lost by 6 points. That's a 2-possession game. Just 2 or 3 shots. They could have won the game. It was right there. And that's the difference. It was not execution. It was not effort. It was not identity. It was just a few missed shots. And this is a very hard lesson for leaders to accept, right? Outcome does not equal validation of execution, right? Here, they did everything right and they still lost. Okay? You can do everything right and still lose. You can do really good work and still not get promoted. You can give everything you have to your startup and it still doesn't take off. I've experienced all 3 of those myself. Okay? That's just part of life. UConn controlled what they can control. Effort, execution, their composure, their identity. Just some shots didn't fall. Great leaders do not wait for outcomes to validate them. All right. They know who they are before they show up. And UConn walked off with their head high, hurting, but with pride that they're winners. It's no accident that in 4 years, they went to 3 championship games and won 2 of them. There's no accident, okay? In your career, in your family, in your teams, you cannot control the outcome. But there's certain things you can control. Your identity, your execution, your adjustments when there's challenges and adversity. Okay? If you do those things, you can keep your head up high. Okay, the next time, you need to keep up your head up high. That's leadership. And UConn did this. Okay, UConn did this. It's a tough lesson. Anyways, that leads us to our 5 main points here of this episode. So the first one, okay, identity shows up under pressure. The 2 teams that made it to the national championship team did that in both the Final Four and the championship game. The other teams did not and didn't make it that far. The next one, consistency wins championships. UConn is a golden standard on being consistent. It's boring, but you need it. Otherwise, you're not going to build anything special. Third one, courage under fire. Everyone's going to get punched in the face. Are you going to back down, or are you going to still fight in the face of adversity? Fourth, make adjustments in real time. If it's not working, find something. I think that's the thing that's challenging as a coach. Coming from the Marine Corps, there's no other options. I got to figure it out. It doesn't matter if I run out of comms, air goes down on station, we're going Winchester on rounds. Like, I have to figure it out. There's no other alternative. But when you watch these games, they play like, there'll be another game next time, right? Have that winner mentality, that killer mentality. Make adjustments in real time. Find something to get going. And fifth, control what you can control. Sometimes you do everything right, and it still falls short, and it hurts. Okay? But the validation doesn't come from the result. It comes from you living to your principles, living in alignment to your identity and behavior. UConn has had a lot of wins, a lot of championships doing that. And this time they fell short, but they are a great winning program. Obviously, I'm happy for Michigan, right? Go blue. So there's so much that we can learn from these games. And that's what I want to talk about here today. And it's not just basketball things. It's not just sports. These are leadership principles that work and that spread out in our daily lives. That's what this podcast is all about. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please share it with someone else who likes college basketball or Michigan or any of these things that could be useful to other people's lives. And remember, whether you're leading yourself, leading others, or leading leaders, be a leader. My name is Daniel Pinedo. Thank you. And until next time, go Blue.